Hey everybody, my name is Stephen Ugin. I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into our company, dig a little bit deeper into our stories. We think they're significant, and it's really the reason that we started the company. In this video, I want to share with you the story of how my life was transformed by an encounter with God. I grew up, I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, did my undergraduate degree in philosophy, studied all the great thinkers of the world religions, and then decided that I was going to go to law school. So I applied for all these law schools. By a miracle, I get into the University of Minnesota Law School in Minneapolis, ranked 14th in the country. I graduate with honors, very entrepreneurial, and I start a law firm with 4 or 5 of my colleagues and a more seasoned litigation attorney here in the Twin Cities. Started practicing law, moved into the top floor of a building in downtown Minneapolis, leased a BMW 528, was flying between Minneapolis and San Francisco because we were working with technology companies that were, the internet was exploding. This is the late 90s. And the more money I made in those early years, and the more I got connected to people who were extremely wealthy, the more it was like my eyes began to open to kind of the emptiness of it and the vanity of that life. I love how Jim Carrey says it. He says, I wish everyone could be rich and famous because then they'd realize that won't make them happy. That's kind of what was happening to me, although certainly not on a Jim Carrey level. And so I would say I started to ask that, kind of my philosophy degree kicked back in, and I started to ask like the big questions of life, like what's the meaning of life? What is life about? And within a few months of earnestly sort of asking that question and just questioning the path that I was on, I was in my home office one day, and my personal assistant was there in the office with me, and she was on the phone with her mother. Her mother was in Florida. We're, of course, in Minneapolis. And she turned to me and she said, do you want my mom to pray for you? And I thought, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And then my second thought was, why not? Why not? I'm seeking. And so she handed the phone to me. I'd never met this woman before in my life. And I tell her a little bit about my story, like less than I told you. And she began to pray for me. And as she began to pray for me, the atmosphere in the room completely changed. And I felt this presence come down over me. It felt like liquid fire was being poured in the top of my head all the way to my toes. And I felt love beyond anything I'd ever experienced before. Deeper love than my parents had for me. Deeper love than any girlfriend that I had had up to that point. I felt inexpressible joy. I felt peace beyond understanding. You don't even know what the peace of God feels like until it touches you. But for me, it felt like 200 pounds of weight that I didn't even know that I was carrying just fell off of me like that. It was like the grass was greener, the sky was bluer, food tasted better, everything changed. And by the time she was done praying for me, I end up on my knees with tears streaming down my face. And I knew in my heart, this is what I knew by revelation, because it wasn't that I thought this through or heard an audible voice. I knew in my heart, I knew that I knew that I knew that I had been living as God in my own life, meaning I had been doing whatever I wanted to do, and that I had just encountered the real God, and that there was only room for one of us to be God, and it wasn't me. And so in that moment of revelation and encountering the presence of God, I totally surrendered my life. I didn't even fully understand what that what that meant. And within instantly, I had no desire for alcohol or marijuana. Those are both things I did a lot. I wasn't swearing constantly. Like, something just totally changed in my countenance. And then I think within a week of that encounter, I knew I needed to buy a Bible. No one told me to do that. No one preached that at me. I knew I needed to buy a Bible. And of course, I'd read the Bible and many other spiritual books, as part of my philosophy and world religion studies. So I'd already read it in one sense, but now I'm reading it and it's literally like God is speaking directly to me. And as I'm reading from Genesis to Revelation, all of the books of the Bible, I think it took me like 3 months to read it cover to cover. A story begins to unfold before me, and I realize that God created us to have relationship with Him, but we're separated from Him by our own self-leadership, which produces sin. Like, sin and going our own way, like, separates us from God. And God began to speak to me and say, hey, the world that you're living in, with the political division, the racism, the gender confusion, the broken families, the broken relationships, the wars, and the list goes on and on and on. He said that is the fruit, the result of 8 billion people, meaning everybody in the world, going their own way. That's the problem, is that you're all going your own way and you've left my way. You've left my heart. And then I get into of course, I read all these Old Testament prophecies about a Messiah that's going to come. And then I read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I get into the New Testament and I read what Jesus did and what Jesus said. Having studied all the great spiritual leaders in the world, but for some reason missed like the depth of Jesus. I'm like, no one ever talked like this man. No one ever did the things he did. I mean, he cast out demons. He raised people from the dead. He healed the sick. He touched people with leprosy and skin disease. I mean, no one ever did that. And then he goes to the cross. And as I'm reading this, I just knew it was all true. Unlike reading it before where it was just informational for me, now I was experiencing it like revelation because God Himself was opening my heart to the truth of it. And when I believed that Jesus was the Son of God, when I believed that He was the only way back to God, when I believed that He died in my place and then rose again, when I believed it, my entire life changed. My entire life changed. Everything changed at that moment. And from that day to this, my life has been radically transformed, so much more amazing than it ever was when I was traveling the world and making lots of money and doing the things that the world tells you will make you happy. Now I had real peace, real joy, real love, and I actually was able to hear God and be led by God instead of just going my own way. Radically transformational. So we're, obviously since that time, I've seen many, many people have those same experiences. If they seek God, they find God. That's what I know about Him, is that if you seek Him, you'll find Him. And our hope at JOE.BUILDER is that we'll point you to the one who can change your life, Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to God. And again, we're not here to push that on anybody, but we are here to tell you this man Jesus changed our life, and we are passionate about transforming spaces, but we're also passionate about seeing people's lives transformed. And it is very possible that we will be talking to you about our experiences with God. We'd love to answer any questions you have, or at least point you in the right direction so that you too can have your own encounter with God and surrender your life to him. And I encourage you to check out the Joe Builder origin video. I think that'll be linked here on that side. No, maybe that side. We'll see. One of the two. One of these two corners is going to have the Joe Builder origin story, and find out how God took me from that initial encounter and led me to start Joe Builder with my friend and partner Joe. So check that video out too, and we'll see you guys at the on the job site.